Hey everyone, thanks for making it today. This is a September ZRX ecosystem developer meeting. Let's dive in. So we have actually a bunch of stuff we want to discuss today. And basically we're going to give a lot of updates around the ZRX labs side of the house and the updates that the team has been working on. We have a very interesting updates from the ecosystem today. We'll have an update on ZRX Portal, and also we have Brandon today that is going to showcase a relay margin. And also something a little bit new today that we want to experiment with is there's been a couple of good, interesting conversations on the forum around ZRX in general as a network, including like all the incentives around the token, or how to improve, for example, the exchange proxy. And I think this meeting could be a good venue to openly discuss those. So we could expand a little bit the scope of this meeting from ZRX Labs basically updating on what we've been working on to a more community-driven meeting where any team basically that works on top of ZRX updates on what they've been working on. So we thought it would be interesting to experiment with this, and yeah, let's see what we're gonna try it for maybe 2, 3, 4 months and see how that goes. I'd say let's jump in on the roadmap, and actually the roadmap reflects in a way what I just said. Something new that you will see here, we've added the owner column that actually reflects a little bit more of the fact that ZRX stack is really a community-driven effort. So yeah, there's a bunch of stuff that ZRX Labs updates the community and the developers about, but also there are other folks in the community that are actively working on top of that stack, and we'll see some of these updates on that. And also, we thought it would be interesting to list here directly the ideas that are being discussed in the forum, and we'll touch on them at the end of the presentation. So I won't spend much time on what has changed directly here, and we'll actually talk about these news directly in the slides. So let's get started with ZRX API updates. I'm taking Fulvia spot today, and to update you about something that you might have seen from the announcements on Twitter, we added another 3 liquidity sources to the ZRX API smart order routing. That makes basically the total set of liquidity sources that basically ZRX API utilizes to 12. So it's a pretty extensive list. So we've added Bancor, Uniswap, and mStable. Uniswap might be actually still not deployed, but yeah, we're in the process of basically deploying them out. So as you can see, yeah, these basically join ZRX Mesh peer-to-peer liquidity, ZRX private liquidity provider, Uniswap V1, V2, Oasis, Kyber, Curve, Balancer, etc. And the reason why we wanted to stress that is the fact that, yeah, we wanted to make sure the community and the integrators are aware that we're really making really huge efforts to make sure that we are aggregating all the liquidity that is out there. And we wanted to also share some stats of what we are actually seeing in terms of what is happening with liquidity aggregation. What is very important to stress is actually this first sentence. We actually realized that probably is not really a concept that is clearly grasped by everybody in the ecosystem, but we are paying a lot of attention at not only finding the best price, but also when we are returning back the quotes, we are really looking at what gas price is being charged or is potentially being charged on the different liquidity sources. So what's returned is really the best aggregation strategy, including gas costs. You might have seen some tweets lately. We were talking about quoted price, very different than realized price, and very different than actually adjusted price that you end up paying plus gas costs. So ZRX API takes into account these three things and returns users basically the best price, taking into account all things. And with that basically in mind, we can see from the data that it pays off to scan through these different 12 liquidity sources, because there is a lot of fragmentation of where the best price sits and where the best gas cost sits for that specific pair and trade size. So it pays off to scan, but also 15-20% of trades actually, as you can see here, they are actually being split. So there is actually a payoff also at splitting trades into different multiple sources, which might be counterintuitive when you think of this environment of high gas prices. But we're actually seeing this happening more and more. And the more we expanded the liquidity sources, the more we see the benefits of doing this. And multi-hop, which is something that Michael is going to present to you in a second, is a great example where we actually expect this to happening even more and more. So yeah, main concept that we wanted to share today. ZRX API, really wide range of liquidity sources. It pays off to scan because we see it here, really accounting for gas costs, for gas fees as well. And it pays off to aggregate together different sources. With that, I'll leave the floor to Michael.
All right, so I'm going to give an update on a project that we've been working on for the past about 4 weeks or so, and it's called Project Bunnyhop, and it's an improvement to the order routing algorithm that Theo was just talking about for specifically V1 of the swap quote API endpoint. So first of all, what Bunnyhop is, Bunnyhop is aiming to address this problem. So for certain asset pairs, there just isn't much direct liquidity. So for example, Ren BTC to WETH or ETH has pretty good liquidity on Balancer, and Ren BTC to WBTC has pretty good liquidity on both Balancer and Curve. But when you go from Ren BTC to DAI, there's not much you can do besides submit 2 transactions. One, like the first one would be trading Ren BTC to WETH, for example, and then the second one would be trading WETH to DAI. Next slide. So Bunnyhop basically aims to solve this atomically, so to perform both of those swaps in a single transaction. So you would go from Ren BTC to WETH via Balancer, and then WETH to DAI via Uniswap, for example, on a single transaction. So you would end up saving gas costs compared to submitting 2 transactions to do this. And Bunnyhop kind of showcases the power of the new exchange proxy architecture and ERC20 transformers. And so how this works from a contract standpoint, the taker would send their Ren BTC to the exchange proxy flash wallet contract. The flash wallet would then trade Ren BTC for WETH on Balancer. And after that, it would sell all the WETH it acquired to Uniswap for DAI, and then return the bought DAI to the taker.
So kind of clockwise, right? Like if we need to see this, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Here, this, and then this, and then this.
Yeah. And so here's a bunch of, we're going to show a bunch of data from simulations of running Bunnyhop. So here we have a visualization of basically adjusted or realized prices for the API swap quote endpoint. So prod, which is without Bunnyhop, is in that sort of salmon color, and staging, which is with Bunnyhop, is in green. So and blue is all the times that they return almost the same price. So that's it. Those are ties. So here we can see that Bunnyhop is yielding price improvements for a majority of these trades at for all these different pairs. So the pairs that we tested are permutations of those DeFi token pairs that you see below. Next slide. And just to give a sense of how often we see those improvements in terms of max amount of maker asset bought, this chart shows how often Bunnyhop improves prices for each individual token pair. So we see specifically a lot of improvement for BAL pairs in particular. So for example, like I think the highest bar we see is like for linked BAL, we see an improvement at like 90% plus of the time. Next slide. And finally, the question you might be asking is like, what is the magnitude of improvement? And it's actually quite large. So this project was largely aimed at bringing sort of liquidity for certain asset pairs from 0 to 1 in a sense. So previously there's like no viable liquidity, and now there's a significant amount. So this chart is a scatter plot of the realized difference in pricing for a bunch of trades in varying fill amounts or varying fill values in USD. So the size of the trade in USD is on the x-axis, and the number of basis points in which each API endpoint won by is on the y-axis. So we see that with Bunnyhop, we're seeing price improvements of up to 7,000 basis points, which is like a 70% price improvement for these pairs. And yeah, I think that's about it. Any questions about Bunnyhop?
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, this is extremely exciting. And yeah, we have time later for questions as well. But yeah, this is like a huge improvement to how we use the 12 sources that we mentioned earlier. So basically, it lets us do this sort of a triangulation where we can basically expand liquidity in a very, very effective way, as we can see from the results of the simulations. Right. If there are no questions, let's jump to the next item. Yeah, kind of a follow-up on what you've been hearing, I think, for a couple of ecosystem meetings right now. So we've been working on a GraphQL API for the mesh nodes that can be run natively from the mesh node standalone and mesh node browser. So the goal, as always, as we mentioned many times, is to improve the queryability of mesh. So before, in the past, or actually in the current release of mesh, the flexibility from a querying perspective is pretty low. You can either get all the orders or pretty much that's it. And then you need to filter them on your end. And if you need better querying capabilities, you need to query ZRX API, which is a hosted service. So we felt we had to basically bring those to feature parity. So what has changed in between last time is the fact that we're getting closer to a V10 release in a couple of weeks. It won't be a network breaking change. So for those that are operating a mesh node with 9.4 current latest stable version, there's not a problem. You're not obliged to move to 10, but we encourage it to test out this new interface, which we think is gonna bring up a good usability improvement. Also, this new release will include a local database. So it's gonna basically help all the mesh node operators to have a better experience. What's actually new is that we published a playground that there used to be one, but used to work on basically mock data. But this one, playground.mesh.0x.org, is actually running with a live mesh node. And I actually have a couple of examples here that I wanted to show you. Let's see if I manage to. Hopefully you can still see my screen. But yeah, this is a the website that I just mentioned. So this is basically querying a live mesh node, and with a simple query we can get stuff like number of peers and number of orders, or if we want to utilize the GraphQL has a lot of support in the community, and this query here basically these are results that are not cached. It's really like going live. It's getting all the orders with a specific fee recipient. In this case, is actually 1 inch. So we are basically getting all 1 inches limit orders that are live right now. So as you can see, it's like pretty performant and really flexible. Let's basically a node operator fetch data very, very quickly. All right. Let's go back to the presentation. So yeah, check that out. And by next developer meeting, hopefully we'll have also the mesh v10 live and ready to be tested. Quick update on LaunchKit and Instant. Wanted to make sure we reiterate the message. ZRX Labs is not actively maintaining these repos anymore. That doesn't mean though that they need to be to disappear. As we know, all the basically stack of ZRX is open sourced, and it's a community driven project. So ZRX Labs not working on this means that basically there needs to be up for grabs in terms of owner. So if anyone is interested in basically bringing them forward, let's work together on this. On our end, what we're doing, we are actually planning for a kind of a revamp of the GitHub, all the repos that are available on GitHub. And as part of that, we are planning to actually detach Instant from the monorepo to make it an independent repo. So then anyone could basically be working on top of that and bringing it basically up to speed or add features. We might actually go, since it has worked pretty well with the ZRX Portal, we might actually potentially open a Gitcoin bounty for someone that has a pretty good plan to bring it to the next level. I'd say, let's wait for the next developer meeting. We'll have probably more details on that. But yeah, just wanted to bring this up to the folks that are tuning in. So if anyone is pretty interested in taking this to the next level, start thinking about what could be done on top of this, and we might again open up a Gitcoin bounty where we basically ask, okay, suppose you're the owner of this, what would you do? And then basically assign it to a developer that wants to take it forward. For those that are not familiar with Instant, it's basically a swap widget ready to go to be embedded in another basically website. LaunchKit is another repo, a little bit more complex, off the shelf ZRX exchange. There have been like good projects that initiated out of this, but actually between the two, we personally think that this has maybe more potential to be kind of revamped with like nice features. So yeah, we're curious to see what proposals come up. And on our end, we'll try to make it as seamless as possible to transition this ownership if there's anyone interested. Speaking of Gitcoin bounties, I wanted to give a shout out to Isaac, who's in the call today. Isaac is basically the first developer that has been assigned a Gitcoin bounty that we opened a month ago or so around ZRX Portal. So as you are aware, ZRX Portal has been used for staking and voting, and the wallet support has been challenging to keep up to date. And lately, actually, since Trust Wallet on iOS removed the in-browser, basically in-browser connection or like in-browser experience, and we didn't have Wallet Connect on ZRX Portal, a lot of Trust users on iOS were basically left with no choice, or like they had to transfer the private keys to another wallet to basically do operations on top of ZRX Portal. So basically we opened up this Gitcoin bounty, we assigned it to Isaac, And Isaac has been working really, really well behind the scenes to basically revamp the basically infrastructure and bring it to Web3 React. So we're testing this on our dog food infrastructure. There are just a small things that needs to be fixed, but yeah, we could see that it's already kind of working. So we are excited to deploy it very soon. So wanted to thank Isaac, who I believe is on this call, for the great work there. Another interesting thing is that Isaac proactively picked up another issue that we opened around staking calculator, which was like kind of hanging there. So we're pretty curious to see what we managed to push with that as well. With that, I think the next, is Brandon for an update on relay margin. Brandon, I'm not sure if you want to take over the presentation directly.
Yeah, I will try to go ahead and share my screen here.
Let me stop present. Yeah.
Yes. Cool. All right. So I'll share my entire screen. How's that looking?
Yeah, we can see it.
Excellent. Okay, cool. So I'm here today from Radar to talk a little bit about a product that we just got out the door and launched last week. And it is the addition of margin trading to our simple trading interface for Relay. So you might be familiar, Radar Relay was really the first open order book ZRX exchange that launched back in October of 2017. Since then, a lot of things have changed. ZRX API has become available and has aggregated all this liquidity. And so this year, we've gone ahead and reimagined Radar Relay to fit a little better in this world with all this aggregated liquidity. And we took that and built a new interface on it that we launched earlier in the year that allowed just simple trading. So you want to come in here and trade ETH for a token or something. It's really straightforward to do that. And the latest addition is the ability to also earn interest on deposits and to enter and exit short and long margin positions with up to 5x leverage. And the way that we did that was to take the aggregated liquidity that's available through ZRX API and actually write some custom contracts that allow piping that in to the DYDX margin protocol. So I can do a quick demonstration to show you what that looks like. But you could come in here and open a new position. So many of you have probably used DYDX, their exchange. For those who haven't, the way that they've set their exchange up is they've built the DYDX lending and margin protocol. And to use it, you actually deposit funds there. And then they have almost sort of an IDEX style, like off-chain order execution thing, where you submit signed messages and then they actually mine those into transactions. But what we did is we plugged into the margin lending protocol to give users access to that. But instead of relying on the proprietary liquidity that's available on the DYDX exchange itself, this will actually fill orders in any of the venues that's supported by ZRX API. So Uniswap and Balancer and Curve and everything else. And so to use it, all a user needs to come in here is first to select what kind of position they want to take. So we're going to go long ETH with respect to Psi. Single collateral DAI. This is on Kovan. I didn't feel like paying 500 Gwei. But yeah, come in here and select your position, set a position size, and that can be funded both from the wallet and from funds that have already been deposited into DYDX. So if we wanted to, we could deposit from the earn account as well. I don't think we have anything deposited in there right now, so we can't do that. Then we would select our leverage. So here's 5x, and then how much slippage we're willing to accept when we're actually executing the trade here. And then we can see some stats on the prices we'll be opening at and like when the position will be liquidated. And these positions are good for 28 days and they need to be closed. And then you can open that position. Come on, MetaMask, you can do it. We'll pay 1 Gwei, like the good old days. And there we go. Our new long position is now open. And so we're now 5x long here ETH with respect to Psi. And you could go in here and see the current index price and what the price you opened at. And because of some strangeness with where this is sourcing the prices from on Kovan, we've already made 69.7%. So you know it's a bull market now. And if you take a look here at the transaction that's occurring, what is actually happening under the hood is that you're taking some Ether, you are depositing that into DYDX, then you are taking a loan of DAI or USDC against that deposited Ether, and then you are actually trading the thing that you just borrowed for more Ether and then depositing that back into DYDX. And so that is how you open the leverage position. And then to close it, you just sort of do that in reverse. And so that involves another ZRX API powered trade under the hood that gets you back out. So we have published all the contracts that we use to do this. I posted those in Discord. I can make those available as well. We can put them with this recording so people can find them. But this was a really interesting project, a lot of fun to do, because now we're starting to get to the point where a lot of the liquidity is actually finally available through a single API. But there's still all these different lending protocols that are out there that if you want to do like a margin style trade where you're making some deposits and then doing some borrowing and then trading, you still have to kind of jump between venues. And so what we're really interested in doing is taking this aggregated liquidity and plugging it into some of these other protocols to actually build the pipes that are needed to enter and exit complex positions with just a few transactions. And so this is our first step toward that goal, and it works pretty well. So yeah, you can also here just deposit funds directly into DYDX, and you earn interest on that. So those funds are then lent out within the DYDX protocol for other margin and short traders. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that anyone has.
This is really awesome. Did you guys have to write those smart contracts yourselves?
Yeah. So fortunately, most of these protocols give you some interfaces that make it fairly straightforward to connect liquidity from other sources. So we essentially just had to write a contract that makes DYDX aware of like ZRX style liquidity. So we did have to write a little connector, but in the case of DYDX, they essentially have basically a template that you can use, and you just need to sort of fill in the blanks in order to source liquidity from other places. But as far as we're aware, this is the first actual attempt to do that. And so as we're getting liquidity aggregated and as we're building up some pretty insane total value locked in a lot of these lending protocols, there's still a lot of really cool work to be done to glue this stuff together and enable some more advanced trading.
Gotcha. Are you going directly through the Exchange v3 or through the Exchange proxy for these fills?
So I believe for these we are going. Well, we have two different contracts actually, a single and a multi-order, and I believe that we're going directly through Exchange for these. I can check on that.
Cool. Just curious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was definitely challenging. There's connecting these things together. Like some of the challenges we faced were just around some of the accounting internally. because you got to make sure you pay the ZRX protocol fees. You got to make sure that you pay any DYDX associated fees. You got to make sure that you fill the order with enough of the thing that you're trading for in order to actually like open the position properly. So a lot of like internal accounting was quite the challenge, but it works quite well.
This is very cool, Brandon. I was wondering from an architecture standpoint, like, or the sequencing almost of the calls, how does that work actually? When I'm like exploring, I mean, I'm kind of building up the position. Am I already? I guess I'm already pinging ZRX API for prices, and I guess DYDX. Well, no, if I'm not opening collateral, I wonder. What is the sequencing of the calls basically?
So we need to have an idea of, so we need a quote definitely for an order, but before we can get the quote, we need to know how big the position size on DYDX is that we want, and then we work backwards from that to figure out how big the trade size is going to be. Mm-hmm. And so then once we figured out the trade size with a little buffer, then we can actually get the quote and do that. So one of the things we're really excited for is the available of more requests for quote style liquidity through ZRX API, because especially as gas prices go up, a trade failure here could be a little painful, and so having more access to liquidity that's guaranteed that will definitely fill is definitely a plus for applications like this.
Yeah. Just curious, also, what's the as we're pretty familiar with the gas costs of a fill at ZRX, but I was wondering, how heavy is the total package? I guess.
Yeah. So it ends up being for something simple where you're just filling one order, about 800,000 to 900,000 gas.
Like DYDX plus fill.
That's all in. That's all in.
Mm-hmm.
So it's getting up there gas wise, but we managed to make some optimizations and we ended up in a pretty good place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not bad. I mean, painful obviously when gas prices are for 400 gwei, but
yeah, it costs like $15 to send USDC right now. So
for doing this, probably more than $50.
Not an issue when you're trading 5x leverage, though, right?
That's true. And we see, I mean, you can look on chain at the size of the positions that some folks are trading in and out of right now. And now we have the liquidity there, and we also have plenty of lending lined up. So we can actually support that now. Cool. Well, great to talk to you folks. And you can find me on Discord as well if you have any particular questions about this.
I have another question. If
go for it.
Has one. I was wondering. I mean, maybe I recall wrong, but I think the Radar is using your own deployed version of ZRX API, and yeah, maybe I'm just thinking. Well, we can take this offline, obviously, but bringing it up to what the current stage of ZRX API is, and perhaps testing out the V1 endpoints might actually give you even better liquidity, and again, enjoying perhaps with RFQ that needs to be some setup. But for example, the Bunnyhop thing that you just saw, even though DYDX doesn't support, maybe. Oh well, I think you would just enjoy all the things that you've seen on ZRX API that right now are being more maybe related to the route that goes through Exchange proxy.
Definitely. So like improvements in routing is something that we've been doing quite a bit of research on lately. And we're looking very closely at how we can make use of some of these new features to improve successive trades. And so, yeah, I think that there are a lot of routing improvements that are possible across the ecosystem. When you go to many venues, people don't realize that we're doing a lot better at aggregating liquidity. But the routing in many places is still quite primitive. And so I think that's it was really cool to see those graphs to show that you can really get much better prices on a lot of pairs, especially with all the things going on lately with all this incentivization of pretty odd asset pairings in automated market makers and those sorts of things. Improvements in routing can make a huge difference in the price you get.
Cool. All right, let me get back to the presentation. Thanks again, Brandon.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so for this last, 20 minutes or whatever it will take. Yeah, as I said at the beginning, I think it would be cool to discuss or simply present. I mean, perhaps more people will watch it on the recording, but yeah, again, I'm incentivizing people to tune in to discuss these topics directly, live during the call. But we thought it would be interesting to, again, talk about what's been going on the forum that generally contains more open-ended proposals on how to proceed. And I think it would be good for us to have a conversation on what we think or what are our doubts about certain proposals. But yeah, really generally having an open sharing session, basically, with all the participants here. That doesn't, again, to go in the direction where it's not anymore only ZRX Labs presenting the updates of what the team has been working on, but really giving it a open forum for everybody. So again, guidelines. Anyone is welcome to share any ZRX related idea, what they've been thinking about. Really, there's no limit to this. But yeah, in general, yeah, this is not about advertising or asking for technical help, and it's not really for basically taking over some time for presenting your project or doing stuff like that, but really about the network and how we can basically proceed in a direction where more value is created, not only on the technology, but also, for example, in the incentives or token economics. There were just a couple of weeks ago very interesting conversations that we wanted to bring up today. So I'll start this session by basically presenting you what we've seen in the forum in the last couple of weeks. So there's one discussion that actually it's pretty I think it's pretty interesting, but yeah, more inputs would be appreciated, or like during this call or directly in the forum, about a proposal of adding a bounty for ZIP creators. This takes inspiration from, I forgot actually what other project right now, but it's in the forum post. But the idea is that we basically came up with this process of ZIP proposals and deployment, where we have somebody opening a ZIP, there's a discussion about the proposal is accepted, there are specs and a designated team and sponsor being designated. There's a poll that basically, depending on the type of ZIP, is optional, that basically asks the community, hey, should this team be working on this proposal, probably paid by the Ecosystem Development Fund, and the audits are going to be basically paid by for this effort. Is the community okay with proceeding? Then audits, then executive code vote. So this is the process that we laid out, and right now ZRX Labs has been mostly basically running all the steps, and we feel it would be good if there was more participation in the process. And one way to incentivize this could be to give a bounty to the team or the individual that comes up with the idea and champions it at the beginning. It doesn't need to be the team that actually work on that, but basically, give a bounty back to whoever proposes ideas. That comes with some open questions, obviously, like how to deal with like not really meaningful zips. We don't want, obviously, people to propose things that maybe are not very meaningful, and then pretending to have a bounty for something that maybe doesn't bring the ecosystem further. But that could be done, for example, for core proposals. Yeah, that's one. Does anyone have any questions or like, I don't know, reactions to this? It's really just a proposal here.
I just wanted to say the other protocols that have done this successfully are synthetics, and then I know it was proposed in Yearn as well, but I'm not sure if that has gone through yet.
Yeah, Amir, what do you think about this proposal? Do you think what are the challenges around this one?
I love it. I don't know. I don't really see any challenges. Probably just figuring out like the optimal amounts to reward people. Like, yeah, is this somehow based off of like the size and complexity of the thing that gets implemented, or is it just like a kind of fixed bounty per ZIP? Not really sure yet, but yeah, just like the idea in general.
Anyone else that wants to say something about this, that they find it like good, bad?
One of the approaches that some other projects where there's a heavy reliance on user submitted proposals have done is to make some cost associated with submitting a proposal, which could be both good and bad. In some cases, the cost only applies if something isn't approved. But I don't know. It's kind of solving like a different problem of bad ZEIPs that get submitted without enough discussion. But that is an approach that others have taken.
I like the idea of adding some sort of a cost to, actually starting an on-chain vote that is, I don't know, a bit more mission critical, and you don't really want spam proposals. But I feel like otherwise, kind of the worst case is that just nobody ends up engaging with the ZIP, and it just takes up space. But it's not like the end of the world. I guess what I'm saying is I feel like if there are a lot of spam proposals, then we can consider adding a cost. But like for now, kind of just like the idea of adding the reward only.
As long as there's a way to clear out those spam proposals and they're not flooding everything, then I think you're fine.
That's true. Yeah, it's a bit hard to sift through EIPs.
Well, it's part. I mean, right now it's basically ZRX Labs administrating the zip process, this process here. But there are, I think, soft gates we can introduce to say, hey, this is a zip that we want to bring forward or not. It could be done even in polls on the forum, almost, or even directly in the zip, really asking, okay, is this something that we want to even proceed with or not? And then it can be abandoned even at the very beginning of its journey. Yeah, this is why maybe proposals of maybe, I don't know, changing the protocol fees every month. Yeah, maybe it needs to be something meaningful. Maybe this is why I see more fit on things that are really part of the core pipeline of smart contracts. I mean, that's a clear fit, I think, because it goes through all the steps, and there needs to be probably also some sort of a payment for the audits, and as an executive vote at the end. So it requires enough effort, I think, to be meaningful, and it also makes more sense to reward for such a proposal. For other things that are maybe more off-chain, yeah, I think it's also easier to understand, or we can get the signal from the community whether it's meaningful or not. maybe I'm not sure, but maybe I didn't clearly understand the concept of cost. What do we mean by the cost?
Could be as simple as like, I don't know, like signing a message with an account that like holds some amount of ZRX or something. Like really just introducing any sort of friction.
Okay. I see.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily need to be a financial cost. Let me think about that.
We really mean the cost of submitting a zip, almost, right? Or
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but yeah, again, spammy zips. I think. I mean, we've been maintaining the pipeline, and we'll make sure it's clean. But right now, the pipeline is actually not being populated at all. So this is why the concept here is to try to make it a little bit more engaged. Cool. This is another interesting discussion that we've seen. I think Joao, I'm not sure if he's online, but yeah, he participated in a lot of our meetings here. But basically, taking the concept of transformer to the next level, he basically came up with a lot of interesting cases on how to utilize transformers in the exchange proxy pipeline in basically a way that can support a lot of DeFi use cases. The one that personally struck me the most is the one around basically enabling a user to participate in a Uniswap liquidity pool by providing only one side of the asset. So usually in Uniswap, if you want to be an LP, you need to provide both sides. But basically, like Zapper actually provides this. With Exchange Proxy, we could actually let the user just provide one side and then swap half of it and then send everything to Uniswap, if I understood correctly. Probably Michael basically had answered that as a better explanation of that. But I found it pretty interesting. And in my mind, the main kind of open question is, okay, suppose someone gets to work on this transformer, which is not really embedded in the experience, the classic DEX experience, but let's say that someone in the ZRX developer community wants to work on this transformer, it gets deployed. Then obviously the question is, who's going to work on that UI that basically replicates almost this use case? And yeah, there's another cool UI, Atomic Ninja, that has all the different building blocks that makes you basically compose different DeFi Lego, and could be interesting to think of something along the lines of that. Has anyone, don't know, any comment around this? You guys find it interesting? Not interesting? Yeah. All right. I'll just go to the other one, which is around, the token economics. This was like an interesting, very open conversation. There are no real conclusions here, but Nikita, one of our power staking users in the Discord, came up with a stake and make proposal, which basically is a mechanism for stakers to not only earn rewards as they stake, but also participate in creating liquidity. So to get more rewards back. I believe Amir participated more in this discussion, so you will have more details on this. But I think, the problem is around how to increase liquidity rewards.
Yeah. So the original post was kind of about how can we actually utilize the ZRX to increase liquidity within the protocol. I posted a response that didn't directly address that, but I do think it will net increase yields for everyone who is staking, and kind of opens doors to potentially allow passive stakers to provide liquidity through other automated market makers. So my idea was basically allow different variants of wrapped ZRX to be used in staking. So, right now, staking ZRX is competitive with anything else you can use to earn yield. But if you think about why you are staking in the first place, it's really to you have some sort of exposure to ZRX, and you can have that exposure with like a wrapped variant of ZRX for the most part. So maybe you're lending out your tokens in Compound or Aave, maybe you're providing liquidity in Uniswap or Balancer or something like that. These all have different levels of exposure to ZRX, but it would probably make sense to allow these types of things to be staked within the protocol in some form. I think, one, this will increase yields for stakers and potentially market makers, depending how you kind of slice up the rewards. Two, it doesn't really tax anyone in the system. All of the additional yield is coming from outside of ZeroX, so it's like bringing more money in, and it's just more capital efficient. And yeah, three, eventually you can create like arbitrarily complex wrapped tokens that would do very specific things and can kind of add rewards to these to incentivize specific behaviors. So like, I guess an example of a pretty complex wrap token would be like a urine vault. So let's say there was like a urine ZRX vault that was like borrowing DAI and like using that to farm or something like that. You could allow those types of things as well. So yeah, I thought it was pretty interesting and pretty low risk. I guess, yeah, final point is that you could potentially like wrap and unwrap all these things in aggregate to save people gas costs.
Any comments on this?
Yeah, I'm of course in favor. So I'm just wondering, the very cool thing about ZeroX staking is that it's virtually risk-free. So this would kind of change the risk profile in some ways, or is it an elective component?
It can really be structured either way. Maybe the user needs to opt into whatever wrap token they want, in which case, they're opting into taking on that risk. Or it could be something that's kind of done with all of the ZRX in the system. Kind of prefer the first approach. I think it's more flexible and it would allow us to use different wrapped tokens simultaneously. So you can have your Aave ZRX and your Compound ZRX, and different users are staking both of those. Whereas with the latter approach, if we were just using all of the ZRX, that would probably need to go to like a single use case, and you're kind of exposing everyone to that same risk. But yeah, it's a pretty early idea. I think there are a lot of different ways we could take it. But overall, it does feel like it's probably not extremely difficult to implement, which is nice.
I think that's the right approach. I think that we're only going to see more different flavors of everything. So making it opt-in and making it flexible so that flavors can be added is probably the way to go.
Yeah, agreed. Also, there's like, even if someone had a wrap token, yeah, let's say someone had ZRX in some lending protocol, and there was like a critical vulnerability in that, and they lost all that ZRX. There's actually not, it doesn't really add much risk to the staking system itself. Like basically, someone's stake weight would be overweight for the course of one epoch, which could have implications on security from a governance standpoint. But if there's no ongoing vote, the rewards would be slightly inflated for that epoch, but it's not like the end of the world.
All right. Well, we tried this experiment talking about open forum discussions, and I think it's going well. Or like we'll hear your feedback after the session. For those that are watching this on YouTube, if you're interested in these topics, and even for those that replied live, please jump on the forum and let's continue these discussions. The purpose again is to have more and more people involved in the process of building the future of the ZRX protocol. So hopefully this will help. I think we kind of actually arrived at our hour. So yeah, I was planning to give a few extra minutes for questions or like other open items, but I think for this time maybe we stop it here, unless there are like really burning questions that people have. No? All right. Cool. So we'll get back with the recordings. See you next month. Yeah, basically make sure to watch the repo with all the schedule here with dates and agenda. The next date hasn't been finalized yet, but yeah, you will see it there, and you will see the recording there also in the Medium blog post coming in the next few days. So yeah, thanks for making it today, and see you next month.